Hey everybody, it's Shadowstar here, and it is time for me to go over my top 5 episodes of Flash Season 2. So, a lot of people remember Season 2 very fondly, and the thing is, I did too, but having rewatched it, I don't think it's nearly as good as people give it credit for. Now, yes, there are a lot of good moments and Zoom's an intimidating villain, but a lot of the episodes are there's nowhere near as many good episodes as people think. Now, I still managed to find 5 really good episodes, but it was a struggle. There weren't that many episodes that stood out. There were good moments here and there, and it's still a good season compared to later seasons. But as a whole, trying to find 5 episodes which just stand out as amazing was quite tricky. But what did I choose? Well, I've started my 5th spot off with the finale. Despite being a finale, it's nowhere near as good as most finales could be. Flash doesn't excel at finales, especially early on. There's a lot of standing around and arguing whether Barry should kill Zoom. The death and funeral for Henry Allen is a good scene. The race against Zoom is a good scene, and Zoom's an intimidating villain, but a good chunk of the episode is spent debating whether or not Barry should just race Zoom. And then, they debate it, they say, no, you shouldn't. Then he breaks out, and then they're like, oh, I guess we will. And their plan to stop Zoom never made sense anyway. But hey, a lot of things about this season don't make sense if you start thinking about it as a whole. Oh well. But, speaking of Zoom, the 4th episode is Enter Zoom, the first episode where we properly see Zoom, and boy oh boy is it a good one. It starts off a bit slow, which is why it's not as high at the list, but once it gets going, it gets good. Once Zoom appears and attacks Barry, that sequence where he attacks Barry and parades him around a police station and a news station is incredible. It just shows how much of a ruthless, unstoppable villain Zoom seems to be, and how far Barry will have to go to beat him. The only thing is, it spends the first half of the episode trying to get Linda to pretend she's Dr. Light, which is not an awful scene, it's just not nearly as exciting as the rest. If we had a bit more time devoted to Zoom, it'd probably be a bit higher on my list, but it's still a great episode. Next, we have an episode I love. My 3rd episode is Running to Stand Still. It's the Christmas episode of Season 2. We have 3 villains. We have Snart, we have the Trickster, we have Weather Wizard. When you got Weather Wizard, you've got great music, great soundtrack. 3 villains are great. Weather Wizard's a fun villain. Trickster is just brilliant, of course. Snart doesn't do too much, but hey, it's nice to still have him. The soundtrack, once again, is so good in this. I absolutely love the soundtrack for Running to Stand Still. It's a great episode. It manages to take a little bit of a pause from the main plot and just have some fun, and that's what made it fun. It took a pause, it was an episode which didn't devote time to the main plot, and yet still was really good, and that's what matters. Having all these fun villains together, how could you not love it? Moving on to the second runner-up, we have Legends of Today, the first half of the 2nd annual crossover, and despite being one of the weaker crossovers, it's still a crossover. How can you not love it? I still enjoy Savage as a villain as much as most people do, and with Savage and the Hawks, we get, again, a great music, great soundtrack. Crossovers are always great, getting to see all the little interactions. The fight scene between Hawkman and Barry and Oliver is great. Barry and Oliver against Vandal Savage is a great scene. There's lots of little references and jokes which are all fun. Damien Dark gets to have a cameo. Malcolm Merlin gets to have a cameo. Savage is here. It's a lot more fun than people remember it for. And most of the problems with this crossover occur in the Arrow portion, so this episode gets to be higher on the list, thankfully. So, what made it to my top position? I'm giving it to the second last episode, Invincible. The scene where Henry dies is great. Wally gets to have some great development in this episode, getting to try to be helpful even before he becomes a hero. We get the debut of Black Siren, one of the best characters in the Arrowverse, although it's still early days for her, but boy oh boy are we going to go somewhere with that. We get some good Zoom scenes, and I enjoyed this episode. It was a lot more action-packed and fast-paced than the actual finale. You got great moments, whether it was Black Siren, whether it was Zoom talking to Barry, whether it was the ending where everyone's happy and then Zoom takes off and steals Henry. Everything happens. It ends on a crazy cliffhanger. It ends with Barry really being powerful and stopping all the villains. It starts with all these metahumans attacking, and you see how devastating everything is. There's a lot of chaos in this episode. This is what an episode should be. Near the end, you want a lot of action, and it reminds me of near the end of an Arrow season where a lot of stuff is starting to happen, but the finale just couldn't live up to the hype, I guess. But this was still a great episode. So there you have it. The top 5 of season 2. And like I said, I struggled to find episodes. A lot of the episodes in the middle were kind of mediocre. The first half of the season was pretty good, but none of the episodes stood out more than the others. They were enjoyable to watch, there's no denying, but it was tough finding the ones that truly stood out. And that's the difficult thing. There's a lot of season 2 which is still quite messy. Honestly, sometimes Flash fails to have a spectacular ending, and Zoom's a great villain when he's in the suit, but otherwise season 2 has a lot of ifs and buts, and, the middle is kind of messy, the start's alright, the ending can be half and half. But, oh well, it'll be interesting to see what I say about season 3, which I have very much mixed feelings on, but I still enjoy a lot of aspects of season 3, so I'll be curious to see what I decide on my top 5 for then. Until then, I will see you next time for my top 5 of season 3 of Flash, and other things as well. See you next time, guys.